Today, take a moment and listen closely. Do not rush past this. Pause right here, breathe, and let yourself be still for a second. There are moments in life that feel ordinary on the surface, yet something about them carries unusual weight. This may be one of those moments for you. Right now, it may feel as if your life is standing between two different paths. One path leads back into exhaustion, confusion, and the same old pain. The other opens toward peace, clarity, and a kind of abundance you may not have believed was still possible for you. As you listen, let yourself become present. Let your mind quiet down. Let your spirit settle. Many people move through their days feeling like they are always one step behind their own destiny, always trying to catch up to a life that seems just out of reach. But every once in a while, there comes a moment that asks you not to chase, not to panic, and not to perform. It simply asks you to stay present long enough to recognize that something inside you is already shifting. The number 200 million can be understood here as a symbol, not just of money, not just of material gain, but of scale, of overflow, of restoration so large that your old way of measuring your life no longer fits. Sometimes the mind needs an image big enough to understand what the heart has been trying to say all along. Sometimes a massive number becomes a symbol for hope returning, strength returning, possibility returning, and your sense of worth coming back into view. So stay here with me for a moment. Not because fear is chasing you, not because you are being threatened. Stay because you deserve one honest, grounded moment of reflection. Stay because too much of your life has been shaped by noise, pressure, and disappointment. Stay because there is power in slowing down long enough to hear what your own soul has been trying to say underneath all the static. You may have been carrying invisible weight for a very long time. You may have smiled in front of people while privately feeling tired, confused, or overlooked. You may have kept going through seasons that felt unfair, unclear, and emotionally expensive. And because of that, this moment may feel strangely important. Not magical in a reckless way, not dramatic in a way that denies reality. Important because something in you is finally ready to stop living, like survival is the highest version of life available to you. Take a breath. Let that breath mean something. Let it mark a line between the version of you that was always bracing for bad news and the version of you that is learning how to stand in calm expectation instead of fear. You do not need to force a miracle. You do not need to manipulate life into changing overnight. But you can choose to become available for peace. You can choose to stop resisting the possibility that better days are real. You can choose to believe that restoration is not just for other people. There is a kind of stillness that arrives before a breakthrough. It does not always look dramatic. It does not always come with noise. Often, it feels like a quiet deepening, like your inner world is being rearranged in ways you cannot fully explain yet. You may feel a little warmth in your chest, a little softness in your breathing, a little easing of the tension you have been carrying. That does not have to mean something mystical is happening in the air. It may simply mean your body is finally receiving what your heart has needed for a long time. Permission to rest, permission to hope, permission to believe that your story is not finished. If this message found you at a time when you were close to giving up, let it remind you of something simple. Your life is not defined only by the hardest chapter you have lived through. Pain may have shaped part of your perspective, but it is not the whole map of who you are. Delay is not the same thing as denial. Confusion is not the same thing as failure. And exhaustion is not proof that nothing good is coming. Sometimes it is only proof that you have been carrying too much for too long. Stay grounded. Stay open. Let this moment be a reset instead of a performance. Let it be a soft turning point. There are times when people look for giant external signs while ignoring the quieter changes already unfolding inside them. The truth is, many life-changing moments begin inwardly. They begin when the nervous system softens. They begin when the mind stops rehearsing fear. They begin when the heart stops assuming it has already missed its chance. You are not late to your own life. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified because you have doubted, struggled, hesitated, or felt lost. Many people who eventually walk into a season of peace first pass through a season where everything feels slow, unclear, and heavy. That does not mean they were abandoned. It means growth was taking place somewhere deeper than immediate appearances. As you keep listening, think of all the ways you have survived what you once thought would break you. Think of the conversations you never got closure from. Think of the doors that shut without explanation. Think of the seasons where you were expected to stay strong when you were privately exhausted. You made it through more than most people know. And perhaps one reason this moment matters is because you are finally beginning to understand that surviving was not the end of your story. It was only the part where your foundation was being built, the symbol of 200 million returns here as a reminder of scale. Your future does not have to be small just because your past was painful. Your next season does not have to be limited by the narrow emotional spaces you once had to live in. There is room for more peace, more stability, more healthy connection, more purpose, more confidence, more meaningful work, more genuine joy. There is room for a life that feels less like constant recovery and more like steady renewal. So do not rush away from this moment. Let yourself stay present to it. Let yourself imagine what it would look like if peace became normal for you. What if calm did not always feel temporary? What if clarity became more common than chaos? What if your future was not built around reacting to fear, but around responding to purpose? What if the things you thought were permanently lost were only being delayed until you were strong enough to receive them in a healthier way? Your story may be entering a quieter kind of transformation, one that does not need spectacle, one that does not need exaggerated promises, one that simply asks you to keep showing up to your own healing, your own growth, your own inner alignment. Sometimes life changes because circumstances suddenly shift. Other times, life changes because you finally become the kind of person who can recognize an open door, walk through it with wisdom, and stay steady once you get there. Right now, choose not to measure your worth by what has not happened yet. Choose not to measure your future by the pace of other people's lives. Choose not to assume that because some doors closed, every door will close. That story is too small for you now. A new chapter often begins with a different internal language. Instead of saying, "Nothing ever works out for me," you begin to say, "I am learning to trust the process." Instead of saying, "I always lose what matters," you begin to say, "What is truly meant for me can arrive in a healthy and lasting way." Instead of saying, "I missed my chance," You begin to say, "My life is still unfolding." That shift matters more than most people realize. The inner world has a way of shaping what we notice, what we expect, and how we respond when opportunities arrive. If your inner world has been dominated by fear, then even good things can feel suspicious. If your inner world has been dominated by disappointment, then even hope can feel dangerous. But slowly, gently, that can change. You can learn to recognize peace without questioning it. You can learn to receive support without assuming it will disappear. You can learn to hold possibility without immediately preparing for loss. Take another breath here. You do not have to fix your entire life in one sitting. You do not have to become a new person before the end of this message. But you can let this be a point of remembrance, a reminder that something sacred can happen when a person stops running from themselves, a reminder that healing often begins when you stop demanding guarantees and start practicing presence, a reminder that peace is not something you have to earn by suffering first. It is something you can begin allowing, little by little, starting now. There may have been times when you felt unseen in rooms that should have recognized your value. Times when your intentions were misunderstood. Times when your work was overlooked. Times when your kindness was taken for granted. Times when your silence was mistaken for weakness. Those experiences leave marks. They can shape the way you enter future conversations, relationships, and opportunities. But they do not get to define your final identity. You are more than the places where you were underestimated. This is why moments like this matter. Not because one message solves everything, but because one moment of truth can interrupt a pattern. It can stop the cycle of constant self-doubt. It can soften the grip of old fear. It can remind you that your life is not over just because one season was painful. It can reintroduce you to the possibility that there is still beauty, favor, and meaningful momentum ahead of you. The image of abundance is powerful because it pushes back against a long habit many people have of expecting less. Some people have been in survival mode for so long that they have forgotten how to recognize generosity, rest, safety, and emotional spaciousness when it appears. They think intensity is normal. They think struggle is proof they are trying hard enough. They think chaos means movement. But not every meaningful change arrives through pressure. Some of the best things in life arrive through quiet consistency, through healthy timing, through clear boundaries, through honest relationships, and through a peace that does not need to prove itself. If you have been looking for a sign, let this be one simple sign. You are allowed to stop speaking over your own future with fear. You are allowed to stop predicting the worst before it happens. You are allowed to stop expecting life to punish you the moment you feel hopeful. You are allowed to believe that things can improve in ways that are steady, wise, and real. As you remain here, imagine old tension leaving your body. Imagine the fear that used to sit in your chest beginning to loosen. Imagine your thoughts becoming less crowded. Imagine a new kind of focus entering your life, one built not on urgency, but on trust. The truth is, some of the strongest transformations happen when a person no longer needs external chaos to feel alive. They become anchored. They become clear. They begin to hear their own deeper values again. And from that place, decisions change. Relationships change. Priorities change. The way you talk to yourself changes. The opportunities you pursue change. the things you tolerate change. What once looked acceptable begins to look too costly. What once looked impossible begins to feel reachable. What once felt like your ceiling begins to look more like a chapter you have outgrown. So when the symbol of 200 million appears in this message, receive it as a picture of expansion. Expansion of perspective. Expansion of faith. Expansion of peace. Expansion of self-respect. Expansion of capacity. Expansion of hope. Expansion of what you believe your life can hold without falling apart. Because perhaps what is changing first is not your bank account, not your title, not your outer image, but the internal architecture that determines how you will carry future blessings when they come. There is wisdom in becoming ready on the inside. There is wisdom in allowing your emotional world to become stable enough to hold good things without immediately expecting them to vanish. There is wisdom in learning how to accept joy without apology. There is wisdom in becoming someone who no longer confuses suffering with worthiness. Maybe this moment is inviting you into that wisdom. Maybe it is asking you to stop romanticizing hardship and start honoring wholeness. Maybe it is asking you to stop measuring spiritual depth by how much pain you can endure and begin measuring growth by how honestly, gently, and faithfully you can live. You may notice over the next days that your perspective shifts in small ways. A conversation may land differently. A memory may lose some of its sting. An idea may become clearer. A burden may feel lighter. A new opportunity may appear. Someone may reach out. A practical next step may become obvious. Or perhaps nothing dramatic happens immediately, but something inside you has still changed, and that matters. Not every turning point arrives with fireworks. Some arrive as calm certainty. Do not underestimate calm certainty. It can rebuild a life. It can restore a person's ability to trust themselves again. It can make room for discipline without fear, love without desperation, and purpose without burnout. It can help you move through your days with a steadier heart. And that kind of change often creates outward results over time that are more sustainable than anything built on adrenaline or pressure. If this message is resonating with you, you do not need to prove anything. You do not need to panic, perform, or make extreme promises. Simply acknowledge what feels true. If it helps you, you can quietly write down one word that describes the life you want to build from here. Peace, clarity, restoration, courage, stability, healing, focus, trust, purpose, joy. Let that word become a simple anchor. Let it remind you of the direction your life is taking, because direction matters. A person can be moving slowly and still be moving well. A person can be healing quietly and still be making real progress. A person can be rebuilding behind the scenes and still be closer to breakthrough than anyone around them realizes. You do not have to announce every change for it to be real. You do not have to prove your becoming to people who only understood your old pain. There are versions of you that are already ending. The version that constantly assumes rejection. The version that apologizes for existing. The version that thinks peace is temporary. The version that calls every delay a failure. The version that survives but never settles. That version may have protected you once, but it does not have to lead you forever. And there are versions of you beginning to rise. The one who pauses before reacting. the one who can feel deeply without collapsing, the one who notices manipulation and chooses honesty, the one who values rest, the one who trusts wise timing, the one who can receive good things without suspicion, the one who is no longer trying to earn love by overextending, the one who does not mistake being chosen by everyone for being aligned with what is truly right. That shift is sacred in its own way. It is not flashy, but it is real. It is the kind of change that affects everything. It changes how you wake up. It changes the tone of your decisions. It changes how you carry your name, your voice, your boundaries, your work, your relationships, and your future. If you have been praying, hoping, journaling, or quietly asking life for relief, let this be a moment where you stop assuming your request disappeared into silence. The answer may not arrive in the form you expected. It may not look like instant rescue. It may look like new strength, better discernment, clearer priorities, healthier opportunities, deeper peace, and wiser relationships. Sometimes that is how restoration enters, not by erasing the past, but by changing what the past gets to mean. There are wounds that once taught you to live defensively, but your life does not have to remain organized around those wounds. You can honor what happened without handing it a control over your future. You can learn from the pain without building your identity around it. You can remember the loss without expecting loss to be the pattern forever. This is where hope becomes mature. It stops being shallow optimism and becomes something steadier. It becomes the quiet conviction that life can be rebuilt. It becomes the confidence that your peace is worth protecting. It becomes the recognition that not every closed door was a punishment. Some were redirection. Some were protection. Some were preparation. Some were mercy in disguise. And now you may be standing in a different kind of season. One where your task is not merely to endure, but to discern. Not merely to survive, but to align. Not merely to recover, but to build. Build a life that matches the truth you are learning. Build habits that support your peace. Build relationships that honor your humanity. Build routines that make room for your mind to breathe. Build beliefs that are strong enough to hold possibility without falling into fantasy. That balance matters. Grounded hope is powerful. Grounded faith is powerful. Grounded peace is powerful. They do not deny real challenges, but they refuse to let fear become the interpreter of everything. They create space for wise action. They make room for meaningful change. They help you stay open without becoming naive. So if you sense that your life is shifting, do not rush to label it before it has time to take shape. Protect it, nurture it, give yourself permission to grow into it. The beginning of a better chapter is often fragile, not because it is weak, but because it is new. It needs honesty, patience, and consistency more than drama. You might notice over the next few days that your energy changes. Maybe you feel calmer. Maybe you sleep a little better. Maybe a conversation goes differently. Maybe a chance appears that you had stopped expecting. Maybe you find yourself saying no to things that once drained you. Maybe you feel less interested in proving yourself and more interested in protecting your peace. All of that counts. All of that is movement. And if the old fears come back for a moment, that does not mean the change was fake. It only means growth is still unfolding. Healing is not a straight line. Renewal is not a single emotional high. Real change is often quiet, repetitive, and steady. It is built in the way you return to truth after fear visits. It is built in the way you choose not to hand your future back to the habits that once ruled you. The language of this message remains spiritual, because many people experience life through that lens. But even in spiritual language, let us stay honest and clear. You do not need fear-based pressure to move toward what is good for you. You do not need manipulative promises to believe your future can improve. You do not need to be frightened into faith. What is meant to support your growth can do so without coercion. What is meant to bring peace can do so without panic. What is meant to guide you can do so without denying reality. So let this be different. Let this be a message that gives you room to breathe. Let it be a message that reminds you of your dignity. Let it be a message that says your worth is not hanging by a thread. Let it be a message that says peace is not reserved for a special few. Let it be a message that says your life can become more honest, more whole, and more spacious than it has been. You have likely carried dreams that felt too vulnerable to say out loud. Dreams of being safe. Dreams of being understood. Dreams of doing meaningful work. Dreams of having enough. Dreams of loving and being loved without constant anxiety. Dreams of resting without guilt. Dreams of feeling spiritually connected without confusion. Dreams of waking up and not feeling dread. These dreams matter. They are not too small. They are not too late. They are not automatically unrealistic just because they have not fully arrived yet. Sometimes the deepest abundance is not loud. It shows up as peace in your body. It shows up as boundaries that hold. It shows up as wise timing. It shows up as the ability to walk away from what harms you. It shows up as provision that meets your actual needs. It shows up as the return of joy after a long, numb season. It shows up as self-respect. It shows up as the courage to begin again. And yet, there is nothing wrong with wanting more in practical ways too. More stability. More financial breathing room. More meaningful opportunity. More support. More room to create. More room to grow. More room to contribute. More room to live without constantly shrinking. The key is to hold those desires with honesty and wisdom, not desperation. To let abundance be rooted in wholeness, not just image. To let increase support a meaningful life, not replace one. This is where the symbol becomes useful again. 200 million. A number large enough to shake the imagination awake. A number that says, do not reduce your future to the limits of your past. A number that says, there may be more available to your life than fear has allowed you to believe. A number that says, expand your expectations carefully but courageously. A number that says, let your inner world become wide enough to welcome something better. Maybe for you, that looks like finally believing you are worthy of healthy love. Maybe it looks like applying for the job you kept talking yourself out of. Maybe it looks like leaving a pattern of people-pleasing. Maybe it looks like seeking help. Maybe it looks like resting. Maybe it looks like forgiving yourself for how long survival mode lasted. Maybe it looks like choosing consistency over intensity. Maybe it looks like finally accepting that your future does not need to resemble your most painful memories. As this message continues, let yourself release one old belief. Just one. Maybe it is the belief that things never work out for you. Maybe it is the belief that good things only happen to other people. Maybe it is the belief that you always have to struggle to prove your worth. Maybe it is the belief that if peace arrives, it will immediately disappear. Let that belief loosen its hold. It has spoken long enough. And let one new belief take root. Perhaps this one: I am allowed to build a peaceful life. Or this one: what is healthy for me can arrive without fear. Or this one: I do not need chaos to feel chosen. Or this one: my life still has room for restoration. Or simply, I am ready to move forward in truth. These are not empty words if you live them. They become pathways. They shape your choices. They shape your relationships. They shape how you carry your future. They shape what you notice, what you welcome, and what you decline. They are not magic formulas, but they do matter. The inner narrative of a life affects the outward direction of that life more than many people realize. You may have reached a point where you are tired of being defined by your hardest years. That tiredness can become wisdom if you let it. It can become the moment you stop entertaining every fearful thought as if it were prophecy. It can become the moment you stop treating your old coping mechanisms as permanent identity. It can become the moment you decide your future deserves a more honest and hopeful foundation. That foundation may include prayer for some, reflection for others, therapy for others, accountability, community, spiritual practice, better habits, new boundaries, or all of the above. Realignment is often practical. Peace becomes more believable when it is supported by choices that honor it. Healing becomes more sustainable when it has structure. Hope becomes stronger when it is accompanied by action. So, if you are listening for confirmation, perhaps this is the confirmation. Your next chapter should be built with both faith and wisdom, with openness and discernment, with courage and patience, with imagination and grounded reality. You do not have to choose between being spiritually alive and emotionally honest. You can be both. And maybe that is what makes this moment meaningful. Not exaggerated claims, not panic, not pressure, but the possibility that you are finally willing to tell the truth about how tired you have been, how much you have carried, and how deeply you want your life to become more whole. That truth is powerful. It opens doors. It changes the kind of future you are available for. As the message nears its close, stay present to the calm that may be settling over you. Let it teach you something. Let it remind you that stillness is not emptiness. Sometimes stillness is alignment. Sometimes calm is not the absence of movement, but the beginning of right movement. Sometimes the most important turning points happen when the noise stops and you can hear yourself again. There may be people who do not understand the changes happening in you. That is all right. Not every transformation needs an audience. Some of the most important ones happen privately first. They reveal themselves over time in your choices, your tone, your boundaries, your priorities, and your peace. You are not here to become impressive for strangers. You are here to become aligned with truth. You are here to become a safer home for your own spirit. You are here to build a life that can hold peace without fearing it, love without clinging, success without losing yourself, and purpose without burnout. Let the final meaning of this message be simple. You have not come this far just to remain trapped in the emotional atmosphere of an old chapter. You have permission to step into a wider life, a steadier life, a cleaner life, a more honest life, a life where hope is not used to manipulate you but to strengthen you, a life where faith is not fear in disguise but trust with clarity, a life where abundance includes peace, wisdom, timing, provision, healing, and deep self-respect. So breathe again. Let this breath be different from the one you took at the beginning. Let it carry more awareness, more softness, more resolve. You do not need to have every answer yet. You only need enough clarity to take the next right step, enough courage to release one old fear, enough honesty to welcome one healthier belief, enough calm to stop running from yourself. If this moment stays with you after the message ends, let it stay as a quiet strength. Let it shape the way you move through the next few hours and days. Let it remind you that change does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it begins as a stillness in the chest, a softening in the mind, a willingness to trust wise timing again. Your story is not over. Your worth is not in question. Your life is not limited to what hurt you. The future may hold more peace than you expected, more restoration than you imagined, and more meaningful opportunity than fear allowed you to see. The symbol of abundance has done its work if it helped you remember that your life was never meant to remain small inside. So move forward from here with calm. Move forward with clarity. Move forward with grounded hope. Move forward knowing that peace can be practiced, healing can be nurtured, and a better chapter can be built. Move forward without panic. Move forward without coercion. Move forward in truth. And if you need a final line to carry with you, let it be this: I do not have to live the rest of my life under the authority of old fear. I can choose peace. I can choose wisdom. I can choose honest hope. I can choose the kind of future that reflects healing, not just survival. That is enough for today. That is more than enough to begin.